Shana Tova, everyone. Tonight it's an honor to join with you in prayer as we usher in the new year of 5774 with celebration and with meaning. And it's especially meaningful to usher in this new year with our governor of this great state, Christie. I'd like to share a few things with our holy congregation about our governor. Governor Christie is the 55th governor of the Garden State. Born in Newark, New Jersey, Christie is a graduate of the University of Delaware and Seton Hall University School of Law. In 1987, Christie worked as a lawyer in a private practice before he was elected as a freeholder of Morris County, New Jersey, where he served from 1995 to 1998. President George W. Bush appointed Christie as the United States Attorney for the District of New Jersey in 2002, and he served in that position until his resignation in 2008. In 2009, Christie was elected as governor of the state of New Jersey. In addition to many programs and activities, Governor Christie continues to make the New Jersey Israel Commission a valuable part of his administration. This commission was established to implement the goals of the Sister State Agreement, to promote the development of trade, culture, and educational exchanges, to encourage the development of capital investment and joint business ventures, and to foster a spirit of cooperation between the citizens of the State of Israel and the citizens of the State of New Jersey. On April 15th of 2013, when Israel celebrated its 65th birthday, Governor Christie, along with Loretta Weinberg and others, signed legislation, SJR 70, congratulating Israel and committing the State of New Jersey and Israel to cooperate and collaborate where and when possible. In April of 2012, Governor Christie, along with his wife and children, visited Israel for the first time. They specifically chose to visit Israel when they could experience the Holy Land as a family, and Governor Christie's children would be off of school. I was so impressed by this choice and moved by his personal testimony of how transformative the journey was individually and collectively. Speaking personally, Governor, we have a few things in common, not the least of which is we both married up. Meeting Mary Pat with my daughter Evie at a Hanukkah party in your home in which we were invited was one of the highlights of my life and of my daughter's life. But I was especially taken, Governor, at Mary Pat's sensitivity and thoughtfulness to my daughter, which was something that showed me the essence and warmth of who she was and demonstrated to me your very good taste. I know you cherish the blessing you have in Mary Pat as I do in my Dory, and I'm grateful for the good wishes you bring on her behalf on this day, and please send that back to her from all of us. Governor, now that we've learned a few things about you, I'd like you to learn a few things about our holy congregation, Temple Emanu-El. This temple boasts one of the largest delegations east of the Mississippi to AIPAC every year. We are a group that supports Israel and lobbies our leaders to ensure that they support Israel as well. This is a synagogue that doesn't only stand with Israel, but we stand in Israel. This congregation has annual trips, sometimes even 2 or 3 per year to Israel. In the past years, we've taken more than 7 missions with more than 350 participants, many of whom are sitting amongst you, and like you, have been transformed by the experience. Governor, we are a group that prays with our heart and we pray with our hands. In addition to having prayer services 365 days a year, we are a central address that collects items for victims of the hurricane, where literally tons of materials and supplies were collected and given out from this temple. For countless weeks, delegations of men and women spent their weekends rebuilding hurricane-ravaged temples on the coast and bringing materials from our temple to others to replenish them and to support them. We are a temple that offers food to the hungry, that regularly collects for the Bergen Food Pantry, that leads in coat drives in the winter, that partners with local schools to help with literacy, and ensures all of our seniors have rides to doctors and to their places of worship. Governor Christie, I could literally go on for hours about the amazing and special things this community does to strengthen the spirit of its neighbors and itself. Suffice to say that almost every day of the year, I feel like one of the luckiest rabbis in the world to learn with and from this community and to raise my family amongst this holy family. Before I turn the podium over, I'd like to offer us all a thought to reflect on as we usher in this new year in solemnity and in reflection. There's a strange question that's asked in the Babylonian Talmud, Masechet Menachot, about a man who sired a very odd child. By odd, it meant they sired a child that had one body, but was born with two heads and two brains. The rabbis, of course, had all types of questions. One of them was, in such a case, do these people need to say separate blessings, or are they covered if one says the blessing? They were literally asking, are we one or two people? It was a fantastic question for such a precarious and odd situation. The rabbis, in their brilliance, came up with a solution. They said, you take something very painful, perhaps some hot water, and you pour it on the back of this individual or these individuals, however they are. And if one of them screams and the other is silent, then they are two people. But if they both scream in pain, then they are one, and they are only responsible for one set of blessings. This is a very odd teaching from the Talmud, one that has very little practicality in our world. But as rabbis do, its metaphor is endless. This teaching is emblematic of how the Jewish people operate, and perhaps how all of humanity should be. At times, we might look like we're two different entities from the right angle, two political stripes, two opinions, divergent, different, separated. But usually, in times of crisis, need, or pain, we cry together, and we are one. This is the commonality that the Jews in the diaspora share with those in Israel, that are pained by their vulnerability and suffering, and that all of us have in our hearts at this moment, watching our brothers and sisters frantically searching for gas masks, wondering if they will be the next victim of Assad's chemical attacks. This is the common denominator we shared in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. Whether we're living in Bergen or Cape May counties, in Hoboken or Tenafly or LBI, we were all hurting, and we all united to become one when we were facing adversity. After the senseless attacks at the Boston Marathon, even the most virulent Yankees fans wore Red Sox jerseys to show their support and their solidarity. When the water is poured on our back, we cry together, even though at times we might look and even feel like we're separated. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is a time for us to see things from a new perspective and to incorporate changes into our lives. I would like to suggest that this be a time to remind ourselves that we need not wait for the hot water to scream in unison, that feathers could make us giggle together, sunshine can make us smile together, and helping others can be satisfying to all. We need not be united only in dark days and in sorrow. Perhaps that is our lesson we should be galvanized in at this time of year. This is a season to see past differences of gender, orientations, and denominations, and the shofar is the clarion call for unity, the clarion call for shared purpose and for collective hope. In that spirit, Governor Christie, we welcome you here to Temple Emanu-El tonight to share with us and all of the Jewish communities of New Jersey blessings and hope for our new year of 5,774. We are humbled and we are deeply honored by your presence and hope that we can embody the dawn of a new era of collective cooperation in times of joy and in pain, happiness and challenge. It is my profound honor to welcome our governor and my friend, the Honorable Chris Christie.
Good evening and Happy New Year. rabbi, as he was greeting me after the introduction, said, "Sorry for being so long." And I said, "I'm in politics. I thought you were short." But I will tell you that for me, as governor, this is the first time that I've been able to share Rosh Hashanah with a congregation in our state. And I'm pleased to be here among a group of people who share the attributes that the rabbi just reviewed in his introduction. But it is far from my first time in a temple. I lived practically across the street from a temple, Emanu-El, in Livingston, where I grew up. And as I recall my teenage years, and I understand there may be a friend or two from my years in growing up in Livingston here tonight, I was one of a frequent group of participants at 13 years old at more bar and bat mitzvahs than I can even begin to remember. But remember, too, this was 1975, so I want to forget because I've seen the pictures. And if those of you who remember back to the mid-1970s, what I was wearing was something that I would like to forget for the rest of my life. But growing up where I did, I think some of the words that the rabbi shared in his talk before I walked up here, my life experience is very much based upon that idea of coming together both in good times and in challenging times. I grew up in a town which from the outside for some would not look like it was very diverse at all. It was filled with successful, hardworking families who cared deeply about each other, about the quality of the education that each one of the people in the community would receive, reveled in its many successes, and was drawn together during many of its challenges and difficulties. But it was diverse because of the diverse religious faiths that existed in that town, a town that had 3 Catholic churches, and at least when I was growing up, at least half a dozen synagogues. And we all went to the public schools in Livingston where we were able to compare and learn and grow with each other in our traditions. And so I went to many bar and bat mitzvahs. And many of my Jewish friends came to First Holy Communion parties. We learned with each other about the strength of those traditions and their interconnectedness in what our faiths shared and shared today. And that's why when we made our first trip to Israel, we thought it was so important for us to do it when our family was available to go all together, and also during Holy Week. We wanted to experience Israel and Jerusalem in particular at a time when all the faiths that share Jerusalem as its origin were coming together to celebrate Holy Week. When we first arrived, we were all fairly jet-lagged and tired, but we went immediately out to the Mount of Olives and were looking out over the old city. And our tour guide was regaling us with stories, as is his job. And my then 11-year-old son, Patrick, interrupted him in mid-story and finished for him the story of Isaac and Abraham. And my wife and I immediately turned to each other and were like, wow, 6 years of Catholic school, it really paid off. Every family has one of these children. Right now, if he were here, he'd be mortified. He tells me all the time that when I go out and speak, that when I talk about him, it embarrasses him. He has directed me to no longer speak about him in public. But of our 4 children, Andrew and Sarah, Patrick and Bridget, and I think every family has one of these, Patrick is the straw that stirs the drink. Patrick is the one where if Patrick is in a good mood, everybody's in a good mood. And if Patrick is in a bad mood, you know the answer. And so we were thrilled to see him, after this long flight, to become immediately engaged. And it told us and reinforced for us what we were trying to reinforce with our children. The interconnectedness of our faiths, the commonality of the moral compass that our faith gives us, and that the stories and the teachings that we learn apply much more broadly than just to ourselves. And so our trip to Israel was, for us, not only educational for me as a leader in our country, and it was, but most importantly, it was reinforcing for the values that Mary Pat and I are trying to teach our 4 children. Rabbi asked me if, I said the children started school today, and he said, do they have off tomorrow? And I said, no, they go to Catholic school. My children are angry about that, because all of their friends in town who go to public school do have off, but they're going to school tomorrow. But it's the first time 3 of our 4 children, our oldest son is off at college now, but our 3 other children, it's the first time they're in 3 different schools. So our youngest is at a Catholic elementary school in Morristown called Assumption. Patrick is at the Del Barton School in Morristown starting the 7th grade. And Sarah is a senior at Villa Walsh in Morristown. But the common thread in all 3 of those schools for tomorrow will be that they will talk and listen and learn about Rosh Hashanah in our Catholic school because of the commonality of the faith and the fact that they want our children in Catholic school to understand the interconnectedness between our faiths. That education that they've all been getting through their years, and our oldest is 20 and our youngest is 10, was on full display in Israel as we traveled around the country and interacted with rabbis and priests and imams, all of whom were telling, as my daughter Sarah told me later on, she said, don't they know other stories? They're all basically telling us the same thing. And I said, well, maybe that should tell you something about what we're learning here as a family. I also spent a lot of time experiencing firsthand the issues of security in Israel. And I don't think that as an American you can truly understand the challenge of Israeli security until you see it for yourself. I flew with an Israeli general from the occupied territories across to the Mediterranean. It took us about 13 minutes to fly in a helicopter from one side to the next. And he told me, he said, Governor, that was 13 minutes. A missile goes much faster. There can't be any mistaking 2 things for me coming away from my experience as a leader in Israel. One is the strength of the people, and the second is the depth of the challenge that they face every day. Mary Pat and I were fortunate enough on our first night, after all the touring, after the flight, our first night, we were invited to dinner with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife. Just the 4 of us. Now, I have to tell you, I was pretty tired, but I knew this was a really big deal. My main problem was I don't drink coffee. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to keep myself awake? So I was really tired. And the prime minister has boundless energy. And also hadn't flown, all those hours too, but boundless energy. And as we sat at dinner, he could see that I was struggling. So he reached over to me, and my wife and his wife were speaking, and he reached over to me and he said, "We'll get some more Diet Coke out here. Don't worry, you'll be fine. 2 or 3 of them, you'll make it through dinner. You'll be good." But we talked that night about the enormous challenge that was facing Israel 18 months ago. And that enormous challenge has only been doubled or tripled or quadrupled given the events of the last 18 months. And so while I am not here tonight to give a political speech, and I will not give a political speech, what I'm about to say now comes from what I believe is moral, just, and required. And that is that everyone in this country needs to understand this pretty simple truth: who your friends are and who they're not. Right? You learn that as a child. Who are your friends and who aren't. Not by their words, but by their deeds. My mother always used to tell me, people can say anything to you and make you believe them, but watch how they treat you, and more importantly, watch how they treat others. And then you really know whether they're your friend and whether they're a friend you'd even want. As we look to the Middle East, America has one friend based upon how they've treated us and how they treat others. And the third variable that my mother didn't throw in there is how they treat their people. And what I learned there that was reinforcing to me is that lots of people can talk about lots of different things, but the way they conduct themselves is the true measure of the morality of a person and of a people. And sometimes you take your friends for granted. We all do that sometimes. We cannot do that as a country and as a government. When our friends are threatened, we need to stand by them. When our friends are prosperous, we need to celebrate with them. When our friends are in need, we have to help them. And when every once in a while our friends do something wrong, we need to take them aside and whisper in their ear and remind them of who they are. That's what friends really do. And there's no question in my mind that based on those factors, that we really just have one friend in the Middle East. Not that everyone else are enemies, but one real friend. And when you realize, as I did, the challenges that the Prime Minister faces every day, the awful choices that he's confronted with, and the difficult struggles that the people of Israel deal with every day, they can use every friend they've gotten. And the American people should continue to be a good and loyal and steadfast friend. It's easy for me to say that because of the way I was raised, not only by the things that my mother and father taught me, but also because of that interconnectedness of the cultures. There's nothing strange or different about it for me. It's who I am because it's the way I grew up. And when you learn to respect and love people of every faith because they're your friends, well, then when you get into positions of responsibility, it makes it much easier to reach across divides to try to bring people together, and also to plant your heels firmly when people need to be defended. The culmination of our trip to Israel was on Holy Thursday in our faith, walking the Stations of the Cross through the Old City and explaining at each step along the way to our children where they were, what they were seeing, and hoping they were feeling it too. And the amazing thing that we could see and hear as we were walking the Stations of the Cross was in Holy Week, we had Jews from Israel and around the world who were converging upon the very same spots to celebrate and to reflect and to bring their families to experience these things. And at the same time, at the very same time, it was extraordinary. We could hear the prayer call from the mosques. While my Roman Catholic family was walking the Stations of the Cross on Holy Thursday, as Jewish faithful were converging on the city, both from inside Israel and from all around the world, Muslims were being called to prayer in the very same city. Only Israel could allow that type of peaceful celebration in that holy city. Only Israel would provide the security and the respect of each one of those faiths to be there together. That's why it was the culmination of my trip. Not because I was walking where Jesus Christ had walked, but because it so struck me that that's the biggest thing that in my mind makes Israel special. That they don't keep Jerusalem for themselves, that they share Jerusalem with the world, peacefully and faithfully. That was the greatest moment of the trip for me. And one that does two things. It reinforces your own faith and the importance of it. But it also reinforces your faith in the people in the government that can permit that to happen. In fact, insist upon it happening at great sacrifice to themselves. I'll end with this, that all of us, as the rabbi mentioned, face great challenges inside our own families at times, in our communities, whether they're natural disasters, whether they're personal health crises, whether they're challenges in business, whether they're challenges to our faith. And I do think that he's right, that the publicity to the interconnectedness of a community comes in times of crises. That when people watch other people supporting each other, all of the gestures that the rabbi mentioned in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy and in the challenges of everyday life of hunger and homelessness, that you can see a community draw together to support each other. I'm here tonight because I think as governor and as a father, it's part of my responsibility to support any community that draws together to help those who are less fortunate than they are. Because that's one of the things I think that makes our country so special. That regardless of our great wealth and our relative isolation geographically in the world, all you need to do is go to Israel. And by the way, people in Israel, when they see someone from New Jersey, and you all know this, right? They got to come up with a new line. Because they all said, I cannot tell you how many people come up and say, where are you from? I said New Jersey. They're like, you know, Israel is the same size as New Jersey. And you know, at first you're just like, you want to be very polite. Right? Yeah, oh yeah, sure, that's exactly right, exactly, about the same, yeah, okay, that's about right, about the same size. About the 50th time someone says, I know. Believe me, I know. But for us, as a people of New Jersey, we have been challenged in the last 10 months, unlike any other time we've been challenged in the history of our state. The worst natural disaster that's ever befallen this state. 26,000 people still homeless tonight. I want you to think about them in your times of reflection. 26,000. 10 months later, still not back in a place that they can truly call home. 365,000 homes substantially damaged or destroyed in one 24-hour period. The rebuilding of that can't be done by any one person, by any one government, but it must be done by all of us together. And sometimes when the cameras leave and the publicity ends, people forget. And so I continue to go to those places, not only where we've had successes, but where we still have challenge, to call to duty good people inside our state who care about our community and love their neighbors and want everyone to have their lives as much back to normal as they possibly can. It warms my heart when I hear the things that were done by this community, not because your particular neighbor or family member was harmed, but because a member of your broader community in this state was suffering. When I try to tell people around the country what makes this place so special, now I have something tangible for them to understand, to talk about. They watch the people of this state come together and support each other in a way that warmed the hearts of the people of this country towards our state. For the first time in a long time, we were known for something other than the Real Housewives of New Jersey, since I'm here in Bergen County. Snooki in the Situation, since I've spent a lot of time at the shore. And Tony Soprano. I will tell you, and end with this, you get a lot of different people come up to you when you're governor of New Jersey from different places around the country who have a kind of fascination with our state. They don't quite know what to make of us. And they also sometimes aren't necessarily in touch with reality. I met a woman in Utah when I was out there on a political trip, and she came up to me and said, "You're the governor of New Jersey. I've seen you on TV." And I said, yeah, nice to meet you. She said, "You live in New Jersey?" I go, "Well, yeah." And she said to me, this was a couple of years ago now, she said, "Do you know Tony Soprano?" And I said, "Well, I'm sure you mean Jim Gandolfini." And yes, I've met Mr. Gandolfini. She goes, No. I mean Tony Soprano. And I looked at her, I said, "You know it's all fake, right?" She looked at me and said, "It is?" I go, "Yes, it is." There's myths that build up around our state over time. But the last 10 months, while it's brought great sorrow and pain and loss and challenge to people, over the long haul, as we recover, it's brought great pride to the people of this state and great admiration by others in America and around the world for the people of our state. And it's because of communities like this one that work together, that pray together, that enjoy each other's company, that believe in each other, and that believe that together a community can truly make a difference, not only for each other, but for all those who come in its contact. And so that's why when I was invited tonight, I gladly accepted, because I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a strong part of the fabric of this state and who we are. And the greatest honor and privilege that I'll ever have in my life is to be the governor of the place where I was born and raised, and to lead the people who helped to make me who I am, the good and the bad. You're responsible for both. So, as your community enters a new year, and it is a time for reflection, do not only reflect on the challenges that lie ahead and how you can meet them, but take a moment to pat each other on the back for the wonderful things that you've done for so many people in a time of extraordinary challenge. They can't each thank you personally. It's my responsibility to do it for them. So Happy New Year. Thank you for allowing me to come into your place of worship on a very important day, and to, at least for a short period of time, be a more intimate part of your community. Thank you all very much.
Well, Governor, you said you always wanted to be a bar mitzvah boy, and this is where our bar mitzvah boys stand every Shabbat.
On behalf of the Men's Club.
Yes, and along with our Vice President and my dear friend Howard Lavin, we have two brief presentations to give you. First is, we know this isn't your first visit to a synagogue, but we pray that it's not your last. And we hope that you always feel at home at this synagogue and any synagogue. So we had this kippah made for you in Israel. It says Governor Christie, and it has Israeli flag and American flag. They didn't know how to make the New Jersey state flag. And we hope that you wear it with pride and always remember your connection to our synagogue and the entire Jewish community that honors you and celebrates you in the seat that you hold tonight.
Thank you.
We also have this special gift for you, unique to our synagogue. We got rid of all of our soda. Only this year. Enjoy.
It really works.
A few months ago, I was in Israel, and I had the privilege of going to the SodaStream factory and learning about what SodaStream does, one of the startup innovations. This synagogue is a pioneer because after I came home from Israel, we bought about 75 of these machines, got rid of all of our sodas. Not only is it healthier, but it supports Israel. It denies the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. It denies all those people who want to say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist in the West Bank. And it also employs, in harmony, Jews and Palestinians together, because at the factories, every factory where our children went this summer, we saw a dining hall where the Palestinian and Israeli workers eat together, and side by side is a mosque and a synagogue where they pray separately. That's emblematic of the hope that they offer. But unique to SodaStream is their American headquarters are in the state of New Jersey. So you tell Mary Pat to give this to Patrick so that he can make a drink of which he stirs with the straw that he is.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry about it. Patrick put his hands on this as soon as I get home. I have no doubt about that. I'll be very popular. I thank you all. It's very good.
May you use this in good health, and I want to bestow a blessing upon you with my friend Howard by our side. May God bless you and may God keep you. May God always shine down upon you. May God grant you, your wife, and your family health, peace, happiness, and continue to bless you with strength as you give spirit, courage, and direction to the citizens of this great state. Thank you so much for the incredible honor of being with us tonight, Governor.
Thank you.